Yes, today is the day. The Mini will be seeing sunlight very shortly. In the meantime, I have some very important driver feel modifications going on the Mini. So with the car, basically now with the fully engine built, with the wide body setup done on it, with the forged internals, with the fluids all topped up, the Mini is ready to go. It's ready to hit the streets. But there's a couple things that I want to change to this car before that happens. As for the interior of this car, I want to say it's kind of lacking. I haven't really done the same kind of modifications to the inside of the car that I've done to the outside. Under the hood and on the outside of the car, a lot of money has been dumped into this thing. The interior though, not so much. If you guys remember from a while ago, I bought aftermarket Sparco seats. They didn't fit. And after that, I kind of got a little bit discouraged with interior mods. So I kind of just, kept it pretty close to stock. That is going to change because I've got some good mods for this thing in today's video, and I have some really nice ones coming in a future video. In the meantime, I have two modifications going on the Mini today. Let's get started with the first of them. This here is a CoolerWorx short throw shifter for an R56 Mini Cooper. This works for a base model all the way up to a GP. This replaces the entire factory shifter assembly. It looks kind of intimidating and complex, but it's quite simple and analog. It comes included with everything you need to install it on your car. So you're probably thinking to yourself, why does the Mini engine not live in the Mini engine bay? Well, this video was recorded a couple months back when the engine was out and I was doing some service to it. If you're wanting to do this install, you'll need to set your car on jack stands, remove your cat back, and then follow it up by removing the aluminum heat shielding that's found underneath the front subframe. With the heat shield now removed from the car, it'll give us enough space to get underneath the car and get access to the bolts that are holding the entire shifter box up to the body of the car, along with the shifter cables that are found over here. So since I removed the engine, I have both of the cables disconnected. Now let me show you the really easy way to take these things out. So this will probably differ between car and car, but the thing that I want to show you guys is this here is a small shifter cable and this one here is a little bit larger. Now, what I'm going to be doing is instead of prying each one of these things off and trying to wiggle it out, I'm going to be showing you guys a little trick. So on the transmission side and on the shifter box side, what you're going to see is two little spheres like this. So these are allowing those cables to snap onto them. Taking them off is going to be hard. Grab your wrench. On the big one, use the 16 mil. On the smaller one, found in there, use a 13 mil. You just slide it right over top and pop it up, and it will slide off of here very easily. Next up, the shifter cables can be unclipped from the bracket, securing them in the exhaust tunnel, along with the 4 bolts fastening the shifter assembly to the body. Then, from inside the car, with the center console removed, it will expose the plastic shifter box tabs that will need to be pushed inwards towards the shifter, which will allow you to lower the entire shifter assembly out of the vehicle. The lower shift box cover has to come off so you can physically disconnect the cables from the shifter. The spring clips have to come off first. I find using some channel locks the best way to remove them. Then after popping the cables off, you can then slide them out of the housing. With the old shifter assembly removed completely from the cables and from the car, we can take a look at the other shifter and we can see there's a hefty difference between the two. Let's take a closer look. So right here we have the OEM Mini Cooper shifter assembly attached to our Craven Speed adjustable short throw shifter. So what's nice about this is that this unit here is a little bit less expensive than the big, nice CoolerWorx one. So everything above here is going to be coming into the car. So the fulcrum point you can see is right here on the Mini one. However, for the CoolerWorx one, look at how much higher it is. It's found right here. So when you shift it, it's going to get a lot more mechanical advantage and it's going to give you a nicer, shorter throw, but you're getting the exact same amount of work done. Now, the one thing that you are going to need to do is that you're going to have to adjust how much movement there is and how much each one of these little bolts are threaded in and out to allow the shifter to move from left to right very nicely. And you also need to change this guy here out. Now, I'll get into that later, but as for the install, let's go bolt this up to the car and then we're going to connect the cables through here. This next part is optional, but I would definitely recommend it. The foam padding that's found on top of the stock shifter box, you're going to want to transfer that over to the CoolerWorx shifter just so that dirt and debris doesn't fly into the box from the top. If you try and install the shifter as is, it won't fit. You're going to have to remove the little metal bracket that's found at the front of the shifter opening so that there will then be enough clearance. With it in the car, you can try and reinstall the metal piece, but as you can tell, it just won't fit. At this point though, it's just a matter of reinstalling the shifter cables and the lower cover and you're on your ways. Now the reason why I recorded this video a while back and never really finished it is because the transmission needs to be installed on the car to make the final adjustments so that you properly get the shifter to shift into all 6 gears, including into reverse. For the R56, this sidearm here should be between 82 and 84 millimeters in length from the center point of each part. That will help when setting up the reverse lockout. In addition to that, Luca and I 3D printed a custom bracket for the sport button and the traction control button, and they sit in a very similar location to stock. The center console no longer fits since the base of the new shifter is much larger, so some trimming will need to be done, or you can just scrap the piece altogether. It's up to you on how much time you want to put into it and how pretty you want it to look. I bought an extra center console off of eBay just so that I could get it more precise with a second revision. But this here is pretty much what it will look like. I'm going to take this thing for a spin and see how this works out, but I have another mod to do before that happens. This here is a factory optioned JCW Alcantara steering wheel. It's much more bolstered than the stock leather wheel, and it offers a much better feel for the car. The install is going to be super easy. With the battery disconnected, grab a small, skinny, blunt tool to remove the airbag. On the bottom spoke of the wheel, there's a small opening where I inserted a T20 torque screwdriver and pushed upwards. That will compress a spring, which will then release the airbag from the steering wheel. Don't go ahead and just yank it off because there are wires leading to it that are to be disconnected. First off, there's going to be a ground cable that mounts to the frame of the wheel. Slide it upwards, and then there's going to be a connector on the top of the wheel that supplies the airbag of its power. It's kind of awkward to remove, but definitely can be done. Safely set it aside with the airbag facing towards the sky. To remove the wheel, you'll need to remove the center bolt securing it to the column. Using a 16mm socket and a wrench, crack the bolt loose, but don't completely remove it yet. Pull upwards on the wheel to ensure that it isn't stuck on the column, because if it is, you'll need to get a steering wheel puller to remove it. Unplug the last connector for the clock spring, and then unthread the steering wheel bolt completely. You can then pull forward and take the steering wheel off the column. After you swap the controls, the steering wheel frame, and the plastic trim pieces from the one wheel to the next, we can install it now on the car. Then grab the steering wheel bolt and thread it through the wheel. With your torque wrench set to 46 foot-pounds, tighten the bolt until you hear it click. You can then plug in the connector for the clock spring, followed by reinstalling the power wires for the airbag to the left of the clock spring connector, and lastly, the airbag ground found on the bottom of the frame. Push the airbag over top of the wheel and ensure that it's properly adhered in place and the horn function feels normal. That will ensure that it's properly mounted in the wheel. This video here can show you that this wheel looks really nice, but I can't exactly show you how amazing it feels. You're gonna have to buy one yourself to find out. Last but not least, reconnect the terminals going to the battery and you're on your ways. Now, for the moment of truth. How does it feel when you drive? Okay, so first things first, this wheel feels so damn good. It's squishy, it's bolstered, it feels nice. Now, if you guys are looking at a different wheel for your Mini, there's the Alcantara one, that's for the JCW, or you can get the Mini Cooper GP one, which is full black leather. I wish there was an option that was complete Alcantara, but unfortunately, this is what we're gonna have to deal with. Down the road, I might change it out for a full Alcantara one, maybe if I change the interior a little bit more with like some race seats and 6-point harnesses. But for the meantime, this is a hell of a nice upgrade over the stock wheel. The shifter, incredible. The only thing that I can really compare this to is like loading a rifle, where there is no play in the chamber. When you properly cock it back and load it, it's just so precise and there's no deflection or moving. That is what this thing feels like. Yep. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, she goes pretty good. Let me put the windows down and show you what it's really like. So even after installing the nice wheel and the sick shifter, it does kind of remove some of like the daily driver comfortable parts of the car, let's say, because you do lose your cup holders and you do lose your shift boot. But if you don't care about that, this is a killer mod if you guys ask me. Now on top of this, there's still a couple things I need to figure out. I need to get another alignment because right now the torque steer is kind of all over the place, even with this upgraded LSD in it. So I want to get the toe dialed in a little bit more up front, just so that's a little bit more predictable, so that when I put the power down, it can actually hold it and the car's not wandering and walking wherever it wants to. But short from that, frig, this shifter and this wheel, it's a killer combination together, I gotta say. Really nice, definitely would recommend it. If you guys are looking at something like this, it is a definite worthwhile upgrade. This shifter is so nice that I purchased the same kind of shifter for my Z as well. So that's gonna be getting the same kind of thing as this. But even after all these mods, I'm done talking for now. I'm gonna go for a spin. If you guys have any questions regarding the video, comment section's down there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.